Ethernight stage, let's go. Happy everybody could find the location. A little tricky, I think, personally for myself it was. It's quite the contrast, too, from the other chill room. We got the bright room and the dark room. So, yeah, we're the purple room, I guess. But excited about the next panel, a bunch of my friends and great builders on stage. Barriers to entry, onboarding Web3 users. Love to hear your guys' strategies and how you're going to attack this. Handing it over to Bianca from Chronicle. Take it away.
Thank you so much. ETHDenver, hope you're enjoying the first day of the main event so far. We'll be discussing about how to overcome Web3 onboarding. We have around 25,000 monthly active builders in this space if you're looking at the data from the latest report from Electric Capital. And that's a mere 1K additional builders if we're looking at the numbers from the previous year. So with that in mind, we'll be exploring how we can attract more developers, but most importantly, how we can retain those developers. Before we dive deeper into that, I would like to introduce myself and our panelists today. They need no introduction, but just for the sake of it. I'll start with myself. My name is Bianca Buza. I'm lead DevRel at Chronicle, the team behind the first Oracle on Ethereum. And I have with myself Nader Dabit, Director of DevRel at Eigen Labs, Francesco Andreoli, Director of DevRel at Consensus, and Austin Griffith, founder of Biddle Guild.
Thank you so much, Bianca.
All right. So going back to what we were discussing previously about developers, the hardness of attracting developers and retaining this, what would you say are the biggest challenges developers face when transitioning to Web3? And are there any teams that you've seen to successfully address these challenges?
So I think it's complicated, right? Like the technology stack itself is complicated. You've got to learn new things. But in a different way, it's all open source and very approachable and composable and permissionless. So there's kind of like two sides to it, but it takes a while to get in and really understand things, I think. And I think that's probably the hardest part. But it's not that hard. Like the tools are there, the education is there. In terms of developers coming in, we've really paved the way, and there's a golden pathway for developers to come into Ethereum, I think.
I mean, Austin is very humble because, Scaffold ETH, I don't know how many developers trained during the past, like 10 years. And you're shipping a lot of like integration, kind of newcomers. It's really cool to be a Web3 developer actually going through this journey.
Yeah, I came in through Austin's stuff early on, so that's why I asked him to go first, because I know he has just a lot more like length of experience, so I'm kind of assuming he's seen things change and a lot more than obviously someone like me. But I find it interesting that right now there's like a lot of opportunities for jobs in the blockchain world. Like all these new companies that have received funding are just hiring voraciously. But if you look in the traditional software world, there's a lot of layoffs happening. I think AI is maybe the only area where we're kind of seeing a lot of like growth. But a lot of my friends are having challenges being laid off and losing their jobs and stuff like that in the traditional software world. So it's very it's surprising to know that so few new developers are coming into this space with so much opportunity. I just don't know I don't really know the answer to why we're still having such problems. But we were just in Stanford like last week at TreeHacks Hackathon. 11,000 people sign up for this from the top universities in North America, often like Ivy League schools, and they only allow 1,000 participants. So it's kind of like the cream of the crop. And none of the people there were interested in building on crypto, which was very surprising to me. When I say none, I mean like 5% or fewer, right? So even with all of the stuff that we're like in the rabbit hole of and excited about, it's still like somewhat like an echo chamber almost. So during this conversation, I'm hoping to kind of like share some of my thoughts and hear some of their thoughts on how we can kind of change that.
I mean, I think the only true wave of kind of like Web2 developers coming to space right now is coming through like AI agents. I see literally PhD AI engineers coming like from LLM kind of backgrounds because like the nature of Web3 Rails, right? I don't know like what are kind of the other challenges that you see right now for onboarding. But I mean, there are companies also trying to push kind of the boundaries, right? I really like Stylus. So we know that C++ developers are a lot. people don't want to kind of use something else that is not Python related. So I don't know, like there is a lot of challenges around this.
So going back to, we fixed the tooling, we fixed the education. Like if you are a technical person, you can land and learn this stuff very well. But backing up, like why aren't there more people landing, I think? And Nader and I talk about this all the time, but it probably has a lot to do with price, and it has to do with like people getting rich and talking about it to their friends, and there's just a lot less of that happening right now. And also, the people that are getting rich are grifters, and we just have just like waves of grifters coming in, and that's what people see from the outside. That's what people see when you're talking about something. You know, that you overhear someone saying, you know, Max extracted some meme coin on Solana. That's kind of the discussion right now. That's the narrative. It's not let's build on chain and get rid of the intermediaries and, you know, create this credibly neutral, everyone can get to it, always on technology. It's more like, how do I get rich? And that's sad. That is the thing that draws a lot of people in, and just there hasn't been a lot of that these days. There's not a lot of ETH ripping up and people going, what is that? I want to learn about it. And so I think that's probably kind of driving this stagnation of developers.
No, I want to say the biggest smart brain, let's say capital injection, I don't know how I want to call it, I think is through AI agents right now. Because if not, we will not have anything in this cycle that is rather kind of like meme coin related. So I don't know how you want to call it. Is this something that you see also around?
I think AI agents are dope. And it's really cool that like AI agents, yes, like kind of are taking off sort of by the AI world, but the guys who are pioneering it have kind of 1 foot in AI and 1 foot in crypto. And we're seeing guys like Shah that you interviewed the other day, like really push these really cool frameworks, and AI's kind of AI becoming the new UI and using AI to talk to crypto and using AI to build crypto things. So the AI space, the AI agent space is very exciting, and I do think it will drive some folks in. An interesting kind of side note, sorry about my tangents, I jump on them all the time. AI guys really love Python, and we haven't really pushed Viper that much in the space. Solidity just makes more sense to a lot of the developers, but I do think that Viper will kind of Trojan horse a lot of developers in. As they learn about AI agents, they come in, they start running these agents, they try to put some stuff on chain, they try to put a token, they try to, you know, incentivize things, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this crypto stuff starts to make sense. So hopefully, yes, hopefully AI agents do help push the crypto narrative too.
Where is Patrick Collins with his Viper?
We need him here, yes.
But Nader, you have been running a lot of like tutorials on actually like those AI frameworks from like Cursor Pro and stuff. Do you feel this is getting more and more utilized, even in Web3?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have used, I feel just almost like Eliza itself has just brought in a lot of non-crypto developers into AI because it was kind of the simplest way to do a social agent because it kind of hacked the Twitter API and didn't require the API key. So it was just kind of like a really low barrier to entry to simply build something just experimental and fun. And at least it kind of opened the door to a few new developers, quite a few actually that I've talked to. A lot of the youngest like generation, like Gen Z people I've talked to, a lot of them are kind of like dipping their toes into crypto through Eliza. So that's pretty cool to see, yeah.
I think we covered a few initiatives that are bringing developers and are effective. Maybe now we also look at those that you've seen in the ecosystem and you would say are not so effective, and maybe we should do less of those. Any thoughts about those?
Are you asking like what's the specific question, I guess?
Different initiatives you might have seen in the ecosystem that
aren't working?
Exactly.
Got it.
They're trying, but they're not really bringing the results.
Yeah, I mean, they're not kind of ecosystem specific, right? But when I see right now accessibility around, for example, Starknet or Rust-based ecosystem, they're very difficult to onboard if you're not a Rust-based kind of like, I don't know, 10 years Web2 dev. I don't know what's your opinion, but I feel like ecosystem right now are building also extra tooling. If you're not building right now this tooling, you're actually leaving out the accessibility part of those developers.
When I was when I was at TreeHacks last week at Stanford and kind of seeing this new crowd of builders coming up and what they were excited about, and then if you kind of look at what a lot of the discussions are on Twitter, which is often the voice of a lot of the protocols that are happening, there's often like really deep technical discussions around like how rollups work and ZK and like, different ways of doing encryption, and but there's no discussion around product building. But all that people were talking about at Stanford were products, like ideas and how to build those. So I think we just need to focus on the tech stack and what you can actually build with that, and not the underlying like arguments about like what's slightly a better L2 than the other or all this other stuff. And the stuff that was being built during that hackathon was just incredible. Like a lot of robotics, a lot of AI, a lot of drone stuff, just a lot of like hardware stuff. All types of stuff. So like the way that I'm looking at it this year is building kind of like I'm putting together this idea of like I would almost call it the next generation of the tech stack, where we kind of have AI, we have cloud, we have mobile, we have blockchain, and we kind of like present that to the developer, and now they have all these different tools that they can build anything with, but we're not pushing crypto on them because they just really don't give a shit from what I've seen early on, unless they are like crypto pilled like us. Like we love this stuff, right? But the average person is just interested in building like a useful product, right? So I think that's kind of the approach that we're going to take.
Things that haven't worked. So the question was things that we've tried that aren't working. I would say like the meme coin cycle is an obvious thing there, right? Like meme coins seemed like they were working, and it seemed like this is like the new hot thing, but they all went to zero, right? Or zero-ish. And so I think meme coins was a structure or an attempt at something that failed, and we saw the cycle getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It was a 1 week cycle, and then it was a 1 day cycle, and then it was a 1 hour cycle, and now meme coins will launch and be done in 30 minutes, right? And so I think that was a thing that failed. I think if we could have figured out a way to capture more developers, capture more value in a productive, constructive way, like that could have been way better, but meme coins, I think, have been a failed structure and a failed attempt. I think that also, as we moved Ethereum to be more scalable, we fragmented a whole bunch of things. We've got a lot of L2s now. There's a lot of fragmentation, a lot of fragmented liquidity and experiences across those. So in trying to make Ethereum and the EVM faster and cheaper and more approachable to mainstream audiences, at the same time, we've fractured a lot of it too. And we've got some challenges ahead with that.
I definitely see, and this kind of could be a fail, but the road to MVP is getting accelerated like crazy, right? So one thing that I see is that, as you kind of said, like we get so granular in our discussion that we actually miss the point of building like dApps like faster, or like shortening up the life cycle, right? And how you do that is pre-built CLI, examples, tutorials. And a lot of time we see so many kind of like protocol developer pushing for actually like, protocol updates, but we're missing the fact that a lot of Web2 developers want to build apps quick, they want to have frameworks, but also they want to have this kind of like, more AI fine-tuned stuff like Cursor, Lovable, all these kind of like things. I think they're generating much more hype. And I think we failed to attract more dApps developers. I think higher level developers, they're not on the protocol level.
I kind of have a follow-up question for Austin, because I think what you're doing with BiddleGuild is quite interesting. If you look at the numbers, you stream like 772 ETH to 1,297 builders. After you do the math, you realize that it's quite a small amount of money. And when after you compare this with like what the numbers you see like at hackathons or at grants, this is like way, way less money. On the other hand, yet it is more effective. All these builders, you manage to retain them. They're either founders, builders, they either join protocols. The point being, they continue to be in the ecosystem. What do you do different? Tell us the secret.
I think so. Going back to devs will pass by crypto, and it's our job to catch them and make sure they have a bunch of good materials and information and the ability to build. And so it for me was like, okay, I can't control the flow, but I can catch them as they're coming in and make sure we have really good content. I mean, going back to all the DevRel tricks of time to hello world and all the stuff I've learned from you guys, I think that like it was about optimizing that for new devs that come in. Speedrunethereum.com, Scaffold ETH, just like give them tools that let them tinker with Solidity right away. Give them a bunch of challenges that take them through the sort of aha moments of like, oh, this doesn't work the way I thought it worked, or doesn't work the way I thought it worked in Web 2, like this is a totally different thing. I always use the example of a cron job. If I want a cron job, it's not about just having a box that checks in on a cron job, it's about incentives. Like you have to write the rules correctly, but also provide incentives. And developers learn that as they come in. So I don't think I did anything special. I think it was about being in the right place at the right time and having a lot of good content and being super open and having my DMs open. And there was just a guy just now who came in and was like, I got started in Ethereum because of you. You bought me an ENS name like 5 years ago, and now I'm working at Hedera doing this other stuff. I'm like, that's awesome. We're still buying, oh, thank you, hearts. We're still buying ENS names. Like if you go to scholarship.buildguild.com, biddlegiddle.com, you just see like a bunch of names. And that's what, like, it's just like, you come in, we give you like $30 and say, go get an ENS name. And that's like part of our program. We have a batch program and a whole bunch of other things, but I think the short answer is just like soft catching people and giving them all the content and tools they need to thrive.
And I think also how you do it, right? All this kind of gamification. It started with Crypto Zombies, and then I really like the guys from Node Guardians. There is a lot of like EduDAO, Cypherin, again, like, but I think the gamification is also one part of the medal here. And you've been also like running a lot of like videos, tutorials. I think gamification is part of a game. What are kind of the other things that you see that are like working the best to build resiliency in builders? Because a lot of time, even with ELISA, I see people testing out ELISA, and then they're actually like moving to the next things already. Like how you build this kind of resiliency in the community too.
I feel like giving the developer the aha moment and that magical feeling of like success as quickly as possible. So better developer experience, developer tooling, better abstractions, and just overall just giving them the opportunity to kind of build something that works as quickly as possible. Because like early on when I started, even with everything that was out there, it was hard to piece together how to put together a full application. We didn't have AI and all that stuff, but now we have like much better tooling. So it's almost like, no excuse for someone to come in and not become successful, or at least to provide them like everything they need to become successful. But just better abstractions, and we're getting there. It just takes time.
Maybe also expectations. Like as someone comes in, you kind of have to like show them the Dunning-Kruger graph and be like, you're here and you're going to go through the pit of despair, and then you'll be successful eventually. But I think if you set expectations with developers early, it helps them realize that this is a long game and this is not a sprint. You're not just going to like instantly get rich. It feels like you might instantly get rich because you're sitting here programming money, but really you won't usually just get rich. And if you're here to get rich in the first 10 minutes, like that's probably not going to work out well. So setting expectations, putting the timeline, telling them they have to put in the time, telling them maybe there is some riches at the end of this rainbow, but it takes a long time to get there, I think. So I think expectations are good too.
I agree with that. I have two more initiatives I would like to go over. One is for Nader, one for Francesco. Let's start with Nader. I think what you're doing with the universities across North America is very interesting. The recent partnerships, can you get us more insights on how difficult it was to set that up? What results are you seeing so far, and do you think that can be replicated maybe by smaller teams?
Yeah, so last year we had a 200,000, we spent 200K for our whole year for all DevRel activities. And in my experience, that was very low, because I remember at some companies we would spend 6 times, 7 times that in just one event, right? So even though we spent 200K, we still managed to have the fastest growing blockchain ecosystem relative to the whole world, I guess. But based on that, we really all went to Seattle at the end of last year and brainstormed how can we really grow our user base, and also be we have this idea of infinite sum games or positive sum initiatives where we kind of hopefully benefit everyone. So we came out with 3-pronged approach for 2025. One of them was this university program that she spoke about. So what we're doing is we have a year-long initiative to connect with the top students all around the world that are in college, I guess you could say. This month we're starting with North American universities. So we've connected with all of the blockchain clubs, with all of the universities in North America. We've run I would say, almost like a contest within each blockchain club in North America to find the top 2 students within that blockchain club. And we've flown them here to Denver, and we're running something called the Eigen Games. We have students from like, Tennessee, from Stanford, from Yale, from Harvard, from like pretty much all the big colleges around the world. I'm sorry, around North America here. And they're all like competing for prize pools here at ETHDenver, but also our own prize pools. We're taking them out to eat, to meet all the top people in the industry. And we've now like started seeing like all of these blockchain clubs, Twitter accounts, like tweeting about all the stuff that they're excited about and that they're learning, and they even talk about our company some. So the whole idea though is to kind of like reach new people that are not typically like already coming to crypto conferences or not in the crypto space. So like the university thing, these are blockchain people, but they've never really been like involved in any of these events or stuff. The other 2 are like outside of crypto. One of them is going to be is AI, and the other one we haven't really announced yet, but that's coming in the next month or so. But the general idea is to like connect with new folks and give them opportunities and kind of bring them into this world that we love, I guess.
Thank you for the insights on that.
Just an awesome initiative. I just want to say that's freaking awesome. Keep doing it.
And like 100% of the work has actually been done by Mustafa and his team, who's like on my team. He's DevRel, but Mustafa is kind of in charge of that. So I definitely give him all the credit. So he's doing an excellent job. He's not here, I don't think so.
He's looking at the streaming.
The next initiative I want to talk about, actually, it's for you, Francesco, Builder Nights. I think that's also quite amazing what you're doing. Would you say that's effective? I know for sure it's effective for people who are already in the ecosystem. Would you say you're also attracting new developers, and do you think that can be like something to emulate in to other protocols as a way to kind of onboard new talent?
Yeah, I mean, you did the homework. Amazing. No, how many of you guys have been in a builder night before? Yeah, a couple of people? Also, cool. So basically, like, almost like 2.5 years ago, we said, okay, not just DevRel, but anybody building on their tech stack, we're kind of like shilling to developers. And we said, okay, let's try to actually do something different, build kind of a safe space for developer to actually discuss topics. So you can actually get all the players together and see how they're debating things online. So we started with like 437, we went into wallets, we did layer 2's fragmentation, and we were very specific on topics. Tonight we will do one on 7702. But long story short is that we run 25 of those, and everyone is super excited to actually hear debates around specific kind of like, could be architecture debates, could be topics around actually how to enhance kind of like the developer experience. So very general topics. So the kind of 3 vertical is kind of like no shilling. We're also like encouraging every players to actually come and actually no product specific discussion, but actually verticals. And I think this way you can actually really like rely on a strong top of the funnel. You can actually get a lot of Web2 developers. We actually saw a lot of like Web2 devs and Web2 builders coming because of the topic specific, right? Instead actually pushing the tech stack specific. And I think, every time it's going well, at the end of the day, it's just side events. But this year, we're spinning also these community builder nights on kind of edition, right? So we ran kind of like the first couple of those in Brazil. So Hannah this year, like on community builder night, kind of like MetaMask card edition. So we actually onboard new users. So locally, but also creating kind of like more safe space about how you actually on-ramp, how you actually off-ramp, and also very basic developer skills like, build your first dApp under 1 hour, scaffold ETH, check HedoDAO, a lot of different frameworks out there. So that was, I think, a big win, but obviously like there are different levels of the funnel where you want to engage developers. And I think doing that on a safe space, no shilling way at the beginning is probably the most effective one.
Nice, thank you for the insights here. We don't have much time left, unfortunately, but I want to leave you with one final question. What trends have you identified in DevRel recently, and specifically related towards onboarding developers?
I think we spoke about the time to hello world. That was such a critical thing last year, like making sure devs, it's so complicated, making sure they can come in and dink around right away and get the aha moments. I think this year it's about you're not even specifically making content for humans anymore. What you need to do is have like digestible information for LLMs, so people who are vibe coding on Cursor, which is most of them these days, can easily get your information out of the LLM. So like an LLMs.txt or an LLMs.all.txt, those little files will go a long ways, not just having a tutorial for a human, but make sure your content is very digestible by LLMs, and you get that information in those agents.
I don't know what an LLMs.txt file is. I just learned something.
Just got invented. Check it out. LLMs.txt.
Okay,
It's
interesting.
just like, you know how you had like a bots.txt? You know, on old HTML websites, there was like was it bots.txt? It was some kind of like index this, but don't
It was for
index
Google,
this.
yeah.
This is something like this. LLMs.txt is sort of like here's like no, structure needed, just a giant text file that will dump all the context to your agents.
And that gets crawled by the LLMs. Interesting.
I would say one thing that we're working on is pre-built CLIs. We did that on the SDK side, on the Linea side. We are working on different things on embedded wallets, so also providing this kind of seedless onboarding for dApps developer. So I think like pre-built things is something that we are really looking forward to. Even like pre-built containers. I start seeing people sharing like perplexity containers where actually people take it and actually create their own flow on the LLM. It's actually super interesting. So I think like providing this in your docs would be super interesting because one thing is the CLI to work on, and then you have pre-built examples and containers for you to take it. So verticalized tutorials. So it's not just a tutorial, but it's kind of like pre-built tutorial that you can actually take further.
This is another thing that like frameworks are actually coming back in. I would say that like last year it was hard to sell a framework because it's so complicated, and if you're going to go to production, you need to know everything about that stack. And so developers would see a nice framework like Scaffold ETH and see like, yes, I could deploy something in an hour, but I'd rather take 2 or 3 days to do it so I understand the full stack. I think we're trending back now toward frameworks because of AI agents and prompting AI. It's a lot easier for me to prompt an AI agent and say, go use Scaffold ETH to build this, rather than how do I build this? And with Scaffold ETH, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of there already that helps provide context to the agent on how to read and write from contracts and how to make components and all that stuff.
I think one challenge that will come back will be integrations, because with frameworks come also integration challenge and with different levels. And we see that already with specific CLI, even with ELIZA, like some kind of integration are not done on the partner specific and they're waiting actually for the native integration. I think this will will become a challenge soon.
Yeah, I think we're all getting close on time, so I'll just wrap up with saying like 2 things. I guess one on that part, on the whole framework thing. We had 2 people in our company that were building agent frameworks, me and Nima, back in 2024 at the end when we found ELIZA, and then we were like, oh, just like scrap that. This actually works much better for the thing that we were trying to do, and it's like way ahead. So yeah, like. There's like hundreds of contributors now to ELIZA, and I think like building a framework is just so much work, or doing all these different actions and orchestrating things with cron jobs and everything, and it's just so much. So it's cool to see that we have some nice frameworks to kind of to start with. But in terms of like what a technique that might be different that works well, it's not really DevRel, but I think distribution is like becoming more and more important. If you look at what Abstract is doing, they almost have like an app store type of thing. That's pretty cool. That might attract builders. I think ELIZA does a great job of amplifying everyone building in their ecosystem. So I think finding some way to give your builders distribution would be a form of DevRel that you can kind of do to help, and that's something we're also trying to work on a little bit. So.
One thing that Abstract is doing really well is the self-custody model. Like you used to have a seed phrase and all that bullshit, and now it's just like a smart contract wallet with some good recovery, and now people can just fingerprint their way in and do whatever they want on chain smoothly.
Seedless onboarding, right? This become big. For you, Bianca, what is the most exciting things that is happening soon? Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, I'm getting signs that we're a lot over time, so we need to wrap it up here. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.